So I figured I'd put another episode out there while the iron is hot. This is episode 3 of Baseball Card Philosophy. I am, I guess, technically your host, David, and I think this episode is crazy because this artifact does a lot. It's the 1915 Baseball Magazine Christy Mathewson Park Issue Only Premium from the month of April. So the month of April, if I'm remembering correctly, is also probably the most powerful baseball magazine issue ever because it has the cover with Walter Johnson wearing his crazy, colorful coat. Why I signed with the Federals. Just a really beautiful design. And it is also by the artist of this, J.F. Kernan. Very prominent sports illustrator of the time, I believe. And this is what I would say, really without reserve, the first kind of iconographic, specifically like devotional or like votive artifact um, that emerges from baseball history. The T3s, the Turkey Reds, come close, but the difference is they are baseball cards. They are used to be hung up, right? A lot of them have pinholes in them, but that was not their express purpose. They were more uh, replications of that cabinet style of photography that was very popular at the time, right? Sporting life cabinets, as well as just basic cabinet photography. This is a votive, and I will explain why. It is due to, let's see if I can make this a little bigger. If you see here at the bottom, cut this out and frame. The idea, essentially, right, with this premium, and this is very specific and particular to this 1915 premium, there was another one made of Honus Wagner, which I believe was the month after this. I think it was May. It was either May or June. These are on thick stock paper, very thick stock paper. It's almost like the kind of paper that you would purchase an artist's rendering of a lithograph on, right? So real paints and real inks would be applied to this type of paper. I think, as you can see here, this is very, very bold color for the period of time to be applied to just a print, really, that was existent. It's slightly smaller than the pages of the magazines themselves, and they are, from what I understand, very difficult to find in good condition. Um, I want to get back to the votive aspect because it's very important. Obviously, for a character like Mathewson, who was kind of made into a baseball icon, almost I want to say very early in his career, he was kind of made out to be the American symbol of sport. I think I can say without exaggeration, due to in large part who he was, his character. Um, this was intended to be, again, with the cut this out and frame text at the bottom. This was meant to be something that you would hang on your wall, right? That you would frame as a. Uh, it's not mass produced because this was a very small run, very, very small print run. Um, not mass produced, but a multiple, like almost like an artist's run or artist's print production of an image, um, work of art, like a lithograph or a painting, or again, right, like an illustration that Kernan did during this period of time. It's a very interesting one. And I think what I'll do, I want to hit a couple of things in this video. So I'll pivot, and I'm going to put up the Cy Young Retirado. This is a set I've been thinking a lot about. It's really beautiful, and there's really Vintage Card Wonderland has really great stuff, and it's like Bleecker Cards or something. If you just search 1967 Retorado, the information on YouTube is fantastic. It's really great, and that's a large part of what made me want to make this channel. Just kind of contribute to that knowledge base. Is that these cards in particular, and I'm gonna pull this up so it takes priority on the screen. If you can see, a lot of what makes this card powerful to me is actually like the dirt that's on the front of it. Sammy Thunder has a really great interview. I'm forgetting his first name, but I think his last name is Quinn. With one of the first guys who went to Venezuela and started finding these. The Sandy Koufax issue came up a fair bit in that dialogue. But these Retorado cards, to me, are the most important baseball card release ever. And I think I can say that without exaggeration and just kind of with a straight face, because they are, again, going back to the Mathewson, right? This is the connection here that I've been trying to articulate, and it's just kind of coming around now. These are votive or devotional artifacts to players who became icons and are global icons in baseball history. This Venezuelan release it's so important precisely because it is I don't know how to describe it, a recontextualization of baseball history, which again, at the period of time Cy was playing, was very, very, very localized, even to the Eastern Seaboard, in terms of this kind of American nationalistic context. It's a reinterpretation or a recategorization of that myth into the terms of Venezuela in a new context. And I'm going to add another image here because it's going to add a lot. This might actually just end up turning into a Retorado episode. The Mathewson was a great introduction because it allows me to start to talk about the votive or devotional quality of these artifacts. You can see on the back here, this has been discussed already with the Cy Young. This is actually very clean for a Retorado, the back here and the front as well. The SGC2, I think it's that you just don't find these, and you don't find them in good condition. It says on the back he won 54 games and lost 315. These errors, right, even down to the wrong image of the player, were common for the Retorados, and I think it's just important to bring that up because it creates a really great foundational context for understanding how the myth changes in its recontextualization. And there's a lot of debate. I think on the front, it doesn't even say Tops, but on the front of some of these, right, for PSA, it'll say Tops Venezuelan Retorado, or Tops Venezuelan 1967. I think that from what I understand, there's even debate as to whether or not these cards were licensed or produced by Tops, and I highly doubt they were. In my personal opinion, I think they are like a Sport Graphico set, which was the magazine which they came from and came in. There are a lot of really great sources online to discuss this, and I'm not by any means an expert. I'm just kind of approaching them from my own context and my own understanding. So I'm going to pull up another one here to show you what I mean about the quality of these. There's the Mathewson. I think you can see it. And I'm going to pull up the back. So I got two cards from this set. It was the Mathewson and the Cy. And it was for a very specific reason. Yeah, you can see it on the stage now, the back of that Mathewson. Because I kind of think about a lot about like American mythology through the lens of baseball. And I think Christy Mathewson is a really great example of the kind of American myth of the early 1900s. Probably even honestly even more so than Cy Young. I think Cy Young was again before we hit the turn of the century for the most part, and furthermore, he's kind of larger than life, right? He almost isn't even a legend. He's like a stone temple of baseball. But Mathewson in particular, I think is a fascinating example of early American or early modern American mythology. And this card is just beautiful, right? I mean, this is just a fantastic set with the bright red. It's almost very like comic book style. And people will say, it's like a later release. It's not playing days, but you got to understand the shift in context that happens here. It's just massive, and you can see the condition on the back here. This looks like it was torn out of a scrapbook. Um, but a lot of these look like they were literally just found on the street. They were like played with on the street. They were found on the street. I mean, the wear on these I think also is really interesting because it's so site specific. I mean, you can almost imagine, right, the context from which these emerged, especially with the smudges, like the dirt. It's almost like this, like, I mean, like literally just dirt smudges on the front of the Cy Young. It's almost like you can see fingerprints. Same thing with the Mathewson here. Um, there is a votive relic quality to this stuff that I'm showing you here, and I think that's kind of what this uh, this episode is circling around the icon and iconography and how that functions. Um, I'm gonna remove one of these. I think I have something else that will help tie this together very well. Because I think this is a lot of what baseball cards in particular are about and what they do. Um, this might be the best example right here. There it is. The 1953 Satchel Paige tops. Um, there's not a lot you can do with an image, right? And this is where things get a little more granular to me with stuff like magazines or books, even newspapers, right? Because there's so much of what a baseball card is it's a forward-facing iconography which kind of sums up the character and represents the player, right? At a level that's beyond sport and into the human, the character, the quality of the human. And this is a really great pivot point moving into the 53 top set, um, because the painted quality, right, the element of the handmade that's so particular to this release. And I almost wanted to say this era of cards, and I think it is accurate, this era of cards, to say that, um, is very important because a lot of what you see with early baseball cards, particularly the 1909, 1910, 1911 caramel and tobacco issues, is that they are mechanically produced, right? They are designs that are mechanically reproduced with the early lithographic companies. The American Lithographic Company, in particular, is very notable, working with the American Tobacco Company, which produced the T205, T206s, the T3s, etc. So, what I'm getting at here is that there are different styles and qualities of the devotional. I would say the Cy Young and the Mathewson retirados, it's almost very removed. They're very stoic and kind of like stony, right? They're relics of a time that existed long before, and they almost stand as monuments. Um, the Mathewson is really interesting because again, this is made in 1915 toward the close of his career. You can see he's still wearing the New York Giants jacket in this one. It's a way of almost making him into a votive icon while he's still playing, which is really interesting, and that's something that you don't see very often. I mean, especially early in baseball, it was very clear during the period of time that he was playing that he was in a position of moral and caricature or character leadership for the sport itself. And I mean, there's so much that you could say about Mathewson, and there's so little information, actually, surprisingly, um, available out there. Um, I'm not saying little as in none, but you would think there could be and would be a lot more. That's not the focus of this episode, though. And then you have, again, the painterly or illustrative style of the Satchel Paige and the Jackie Robinson, the entire 53 Tops set being hand painted, almost returns baseball cards at mid-century to the level of like iconic devotional relic through that style of like very careful depiction. I know the painter for these sets was at one point very rushed, just because it's a lot to hand paint every single painting of like something like 300 or 350 cards or something like that for a release. But still, I mean, you look at the Jackie and the Satchel from this set, which I think are the two best by far, and the human quality really shines through, which again is something that you don't get from the Cy Young or the Mathewson I showed you. They're very removed. Right, obviously the sepia tone, they're faded. Right, they're relics. It's not a living, warm human iconography like the Mathewson is. It's a really interesting conversation, and I think this is a lot of what baseball cards are. It almost reminds me of the early. Let me see if I can pull it up. It's the Christ Pantocrator painting. Yeah, Sinai. St. Catherine's Monastery at Mount Sinai. This is so much of what I think is behind baseball cards from an art historical perspective. I'll pull this up. I don't have it saved on my computer yet. It's just going to take a second. Here it is. It's kind of funny, right? It went transition straight from that Mathewson to the Christ Pantocrator. The early iconography of Christian religious paintings. Again, this is foundational Western civilization and Western culture stuff in terms of artifacts and iconic graphics. Most of Western art history is built on the Christian religion, transparently, like El Greco or Rembrandt, right? So much Caravaggio, so much of it is built on the back of the characterizations and mythologies and stories of the Christian tradition. And you see that translation actually happen really smoothly with baseball cards. It's almost eerie how smoothly the mythology of baseball is kind of it. You enter into this new era of art history, which without a doubt I would put baseball cards in art history. Great paintings by Greg Kreindler, I think, really do help us understand that, as well as the Type 1 photos from early dead ball era, and throughout early baseball history into the 50s and 60s. Let me see if I can find. Here's another great example: Carl Horner, Cy Young. Right, this just has him on the Fan Craze card, 1906 Fan Craze. Again, right, the portraiture, this idea of portraiture as being so essential to the baseball card atmosphere. And maybe I'm just saying something that's obvious, but I don't think it's all too obvious. Here's another great one. Howie Chemnitz's Tip Top Bread. Um, there's something to be said for that. I don't want to go on for far too long here, but kind of kind of like a riff episode. Maybe there's something to get from it. Maybe it's stream of thought, but hopefully enriching. I think there's some good stuff there, and I'll see you on the next one.